The Dallas Cowboys are searching for their Micah Parsons replacement in the 2026 NFL Draft. They probably won't find it, but there are three really intriguing options that could be available at pick number 20. We'll get to them next.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us the number one sports podcast network. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. He is Landon McCool. And on today's show, we're taking a look at, we're going to call the tier 2 edge rushers in the 2026 NFL Draft. This is not Ruben Bain. It's not David Bailey. It's not Arvell Reese, but it's that next group of edge rushers who realistically could be available for the Cowboys at pick number 20. We're talking Akheem Mesidor from Miami, Keldrick Faulk from Auburn. But I want to start with Cashius Howell, an undersized edge rusher from Texas A&M. Of these three players, he probably has the most juice. What did you see from the tape, Landon?
Yeah, I mean, you said it, kind of a sawed-off edge, right? 6'2"-ish, probably around 250 is what we're looking at. Probably what he's playing in the NFL. And let's just start high school. This guy is, I came out of nothing, right? He was a 3-star, and I looked it up. He was the 2,162nd ranked player in the 2021 class. So this guy came from, very meager beginnings in high school, ended up at Bowling Green, was there for 3 years, and really started playing those last 2 years. In his last year there, he ended up at 9.5 sacks before transferring his last 2 years at Texas A&M. And I just think he's a really interesting player. I mean, he's obviously, like we mentioned, a little bit shorter, but even though he's shorter, he looks like a full-size defensive end in his lower body. He just kind of has a shorter torso, but he's got really strong lower half, and because of that and his flexibility, he's able to play with a little bit of an edge. I mean, I think early on he's going to be probably a pass rusher, not exclusively, but that's definitely where you're going to be playing him the most, because he is a little bit undersized. But even though he's like 6'2", 250, he can play the edge a little bit because he can get low with the wide base. He'll get his inside hand above his eyes, and then he'll keep his outside hand free. And you see him, he's so sudden. He can get into position and gain leverage really, really quickly. And I think that's really, it serves him well, especially as a pass rusher, but also as a run defender as well. Despite excellent general technique in the run game, he can still be rooted out of place by stronger offensive linemen with leverage. I mean, that's just because he's literally 6'2", 250, as we mentioned. Yeah. He has experience dropping into coverage about 10 to 15% of his snaps. You can see him defending a wheel in man coverage versus Miami, which I remember even seeing at the time and going, wow, that was pretty impressive for a guy that doesn't, do that quite often. His effort and physicality are what really stand out. He's sudden, but he's also very, very physical for being that size. You'll see him bully offensive tackles who are twice his size. I mean, just kind of go watch the Miami game. He's against guys that are much, much bigger than him. He's throwing them around a little bit at times. Explosion, suddenness, and power are his game more than fluidity. I don't know that he's bending underneath a table a ton or changing direction great, but I think what he can do is he'll get off the ball extremely quick. He'll change the path of his attack to the quarterback with a lot of sudden movements. So he is sudden in that sense, but maybe not a guy that's Gumby-like. He's got a strong core tied to powerful thighs and butt, and he add in strong hands, and he can control his blocker. Needs to vary his pass rush moves a little bit. He has all the pass rush tools. I mean, I saw a little bit of everything with him as a pass rusher, but he tends to kind of constantly go back to speed rushes, to cross chops, to ghost. You see him doing the ghost a lot where he's ducking under blockers, and then the bull as well. So I just feel like he has all those tools. I'd like to see him use all of them more often. He's sudden enough to change his path abruptly. I mentioned that, disorienting his blocker. Physical tools are fairly marginal for his draft stock. So how quickly will his game fall off if he's less than 100% healthy? That's my concern. When you get a guy like this who's an effort player, who's kind of earned everything he has to get where he is, they're great. It's a proven thing, but you worry, like, what happens when they lose just an ounce of athleticism? Do they become, a lot more inefficient because they are living on the edges there already? Where does he win? Powerful, sudden pass rusher. Unanswered questions. Is he scheme limited because of his size? Can he hold up against NFL offensive tackles in the run game consistently?
So I don't worry about the height and weight. 6'2", 249. The NFL is littered right now with guys who are under 250 pounds who are playing really well, like Nick Benito, Nick Herbert. We talked about a bunch. Nolan Smith for the Eagles, who was 240 pounds on the dot. Like, we could go through the list of names. A lot of guys that are productive at 250. The issue is the length. He has verified 30 and 3/4 inch arms, a 73-inch wingspan. That's the smallest wingspan that we've ever had for an edge rusher at the NFL Combine. That'll get verified here in a couple weeks. How much do you care about short arms? Probably is going to factor into your evaluation here. But I think for like the Cowboys, you've got the defensive tackles. You're going to be playing, more of these odd man fronts where you need edge rushers that can play in space, that can drop into coverage. And if we're able to put this guy way out of the outside, like in a wide 9 technique,
yeah, exactly.
You just bend them around the corner, use that first step, and be explosive. I don't worry about it. I've seen Nolan Smith in that same defense be awesome. And again, if it's pick 20 and not pick 12, he's just going to be a part of a defensive line, and I think he can add the juice that this defense desperately needs.
Well, I think I point back to my unanswered questions here. Is he scheme limited? I think he might be a little bit scheme limited, but the good news for the Cowboys is that he's limited to the scheme that the Cowboys are running, right? Like, I think you mentioned it. You put him out as a 7 technique, as a 9 technique. You have him dropping into coverage a little bit as maybe that strong side, more jack of all trades, offense outside linebacker type. I think he would fit that role excellently, right? And I think you could still reduce him down in a 4-man front if you needed to in a nickel situation, in a 4-2-5, if you wanted him to come out off the edge that way. I think he can do all those things. I think if you are looking for a 4-3 traditional defensive end who can give you 3 down snaps kind of against the run, I would have questions. But I think in a scheme like what the Cowboys run, I think he could go in and play on 1st and 2nd down no problem because of the way that they will be running the defense. And I think that he, and as part of a rotation too, I think maybe he doesn't come in necessarily as a starter, but I think he will give you extremely valuable pass rush snaps as he's learning to be a complete 3-down player in the NFL, and fits right away for what the Cowboys are looking to do.
And that's the thing. You sign a Jadeveon Clowney, you bring in a couple veteran defensive ends. He's on the field when it's 3rd and 9, and that's the money down in the NFL anyway. So I think he's an awesome fit for this scheme because he can drop into coverage. Now, I don't think you have to take him at 12 because there's going to be enough teams that are scared off because of the lack of length.
That's what it helps. The scheme limited helps you there, right? Because I think he's going to fall because of that. If he was available for everybody in their scheme, I think 12 would be a more appropriate spot. But because of that, I think you're right. Taking him at 20 is probably where his value is going to be.
And you saw this year against certain teams, he really dropped off. But, man, he gets a matchup. You get a slow-footed tackle. They've got no chance because he gets so low. I think he can bend well. I don't think he's like the best bender I've ever seen. But his height actually helps him, right? When you're 6'2" and you can get that low to the ground, these offensive tackles cannot move to get to that spot, in their drop steps. I'm a big Cashius Howell fan. If the Cowboys took him at 20, I would be thrilled. It's not going to be Micah Parsons, but you're adding somebody with Donovan Ezeraku that helps give you a lot of juice.
Yeah, this is what we talk about. We talk about the deep edge class, right? Like, there's just a lot of these guys who can serve an extremely important role for the right defense. For the Cowboys, this is the kind of guy that you could easily take and you're looking for to kind of serve the role as the outside linebacker. He's going to drop sometimes. He's going to eventually be valuable as a run defender, but he's going to be a pass rusher, and he's going to be attacking and moving forward. And I agree, he's got the lower body flexibility to kind of help be a leverage player to kind of, and that's how he was bullying tackles that are twice his size, right? Is that he plays with such incredible leverage. You feel like you can eventually leverage that into him being a good running back player. Run game defender as well. So I really like him a lot. I think he has some development to do as well. But I think he can come in right away and be a valuable piece of your defense.
Let's talk about the player that has Cowboys Nation just fighting each other on X every single day, and that's Keldrick Faulk from Auburn. We'll get to him next. This episode is brought to you by ZocDoc. Finding a doctor that you actually like can feel like discovering a diamond in the rough. Sure, you want someone who's in network, nearby, and has availability, but you also want a doctor who listens and makes you feel comfortable and explains things clearly. That kind of doctor exists, and finding them is easy with ZocDoc. ZocDoc is a free app and website that helps you find and book high-quality in-network doctors so you can find someone that you love without all of the hassle. We're talking about booking in-network appointments with over 150,000 providers across all 50 states, covering over 200 different specialties from primary care and dentistry to dermatology and eye care. So stop putting off those doctor appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL. That's LockedOnNFL at ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL. One more time, ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL. And thanks to ZocDoc for sponsoring this message. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Have you ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for two. That's right. Flights, tickets, the entire experience. If you're already looking on the board, maybe you think like my Lakers are going to make a deep run into the playoffs. Probably not, but this is the perfect time to lock in. I love futures, and now that we're past the NBA All-Star break, the action is really heating up. So visit FanDuel.com to get started and use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen every single day. The offseason doesn't exist for the everydayer club. Join the group chat to talk Cowboys year long and get every episode of the Locked On Cowboys podcast ad-free. Head over to lockedoncowboys.supercast.com or hit the link in the show notes to learn more. All right, Landon, let's talk about Keldrick Faulk, the edge rusher from Auburn. Again, you're an Auburn guy, but I know you're not biased when it comes
to disclosure. Full disclosure. Yeah, no, absolutely not.
What did you think of Faulk when you turned on the tape?
Well, I mean, first of all, I again should say that I watch Faulk. I've seen every one of his snaps that have been televised as far as I'm aware. And so it was one of the situations that obviously I knew the player when I turned it on. I think first off, we got to talk about the kind of insane ball of clay he is. He's 6'6", 270. I mean, you probably have more official numbers here. Do you want
6'5", 280, with 34.5-inch arms, and he's got, I believe, 10-inch hands. So he is a huge defensive end.
Yeah, and those hands really are where we start, right? He has incredibly powerful hands. And if he gets his hands into your chest, he will control the blocker. He can rip pretty handedly when he gets his hands outside as well. I think when he's operating outside as a pass rusher, he wants to get around you with like a chop swipe or slip move. He wants to get past you quickly, right? He doesn't want to spend a bunch of time hand fighting. He despite being that kind of big guy, you said it's 6'5", 280, he actually is more of a smooth player. I think, you especially on the outside, you see him trying to finesse his way around him his way around things at time. Auburn didn't really do him a lot of favors with the way they used him. I'll say this. It's not just that they played him a lot at the 4-eye, because I think that's a position that he probably will get some snaps at in the NFL. To me, the issue is that he didn't get he was so versatile as his last year at Auburn that they played him everywhere. And I don't feel like at 20 years old, and this is what we should say, he's in the 2023 high school class. Like some of these other guys that we're going to talk about, I'm pretty sure Akheem Mesidor's high school class was 1999, if I'm not mistaken. And you know, a lot of these other guys are like 5th and 6th year seniors. This guy's only 20 years old.
Yeah.
And we'll talk more about that later, and we're gonna have a whole other show about age and prospects, and he's gonna be a part of that. But I think part of this that is really kind of frustrating is that he's coming into the NFL very young, having spent a year kind of at Auburn, basically playing all up and down the defensive line, but I don't feel like he got the coaching he needed at any one position to kind of truly unlock him. He's not, you know, excellent as an outside pass rusher yet because he doesn't really fully have a plan all the time. He's not, you know, super useful as a 4-eye because he is big and physical. He can move guys, but he's not necessarily like, you know, a people mover like that. So it's to me, the problem with him in general is that he's a jack of all trades, master of none right now at 20 years old. And he specifically needs to kind of sit down with the defensive line coach and learn one position, I think, and he'll get better. So he has good lower flexibility, especially for his height. He can dip, although he doesn't do it a lot. I mean, he's got that kind of like hip and ankle flexion all the tools are here. And I think that's what's, you know, frustrating is that he has the strength to hold the edge because he's a leverage player. He deconstructs blocks very swiftly. He needs to finish better. I think that's been an issue at times too, is that he generates too many pressures without, you know, finishing with sacks. And I think if you're a box score scout, you're going to look at his numbers and be like, why are we even talking about this guy in the first round? But then you turn on the tape and I think you see all the kind of accoutrement of a really good edge player that you need to win in the NFL, but he hasn't yet put it together. So, you know, his evaluation is a lot about projection and about understanding that he's still an incredibly young player and young in and maybe hasn't quite been giving all the coaching that he needs at an early age to kind of fully unlock one position. But it's hard to ignore the fact that he's 6'5", 280, and he plays with such a smooth, it plays with such good, pad level and can get around, and he does so many things well. He just hasn't quite seemingly put it all together yet. Where does he win? Length, quickness, versatility. I mean, these are all things that are very easily readily seen on his tape. Unanswered question: how long does it take a guy like this to reach his final form? And I think that's where the investigation has to go. And like, what kind of guy is this? You know, is this just a case where he needs more professional coaching to kind of get where he needs to go? It's not like Auburn was some, you know, podunk, know nothing college. It's in the SEC. It's a major college football program, but it does feel like this guy still has some, you know, learning to do about how to play the position before he's going to be really truly unlocked the way that I think scouts are projecting him to be.
I gotta be honest, just even watching him and reading about him the last couple of days, I feel like I had deja vu to this time last year when we were talking about Micah Williams being the pick at 12, because it's a lot of the same exact things, right? Micah Williams is a 20-year-old from the SEC who didn't have big production, but you're looking at one of these 6'5", 6'6" guys that you're betting on. Now, we didn't get to see how it played out in the NFL with Michael last year because he got hurt early in the year. I guess what I struggle with is, if you think Michael Williams was a top 12 pick last year, I think he went 11 to the 49ers. How is Keldrick Faulk not a top 20 pick in this year's draft? Because let me ask you, do you think there's a big difference between those two players?
No, I mean, I actually may prefer Keldrick Faulk to Micah Williams, to be honest. Like, I think it's interesting too, because the other, you know, thing that kind of gets associated with them is that they both played a lot of 4-eye when maybe they're not going to be playing that in the NFL, or the projection is to them not necessarily playing that in the NFL. I think that the difference is that I saw more from Keldrick Faulk on the outside than what you saw from Micah Williams. I thought that he played almost exclusively kind of 5 technique and in, which wasn't necessarily his fault. And I didn't think he couldn't necessarily do it, but I've at least seen Faulk do this a little bit more. And I have an understanding of where he is to get from here to there if he needs to.
I think the hope is that you're getting like an Eric Armstead type of player or something like that. Like one of these 6'6", 280-pound guys that can play up and down the line. And if you're going to be playing an odd man front, you can never have too many of these guys that can, play head up on the tackle or can kick inside, and be a 4-eye or whatever you need him to be. I think there's a scenario where Keldrick Faulk is actually one of the best picks the Cowboys can make at 20, assuming they go out in free agency and they get some edge rushers that can bring the juice. But if it's just the same kind of group of guys that we had last year with Keldrick Faulk, I don't know if you're going to have enough speed on the edge to really threaten teams.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to remember who it was that we were comparing to, that like it's like where they're the additive, like you don't want them as the main source, right? And I can't remember what it was, but it's very similar to that, where I don't know that I would draft Faulk to be certainly not my premier pass rusher, the thing the crown jewel I'm building around. Yeah, the edge one. And even edge two, like, I mean, if that's your expectation from like year one as a pass rusher, I think that you're probably going to have a bad time, right? But I think I think where Keldrick Faulk has a future, a big time future in the NFL, is exactly as you explained it, as this important glue guy that has become an important part of these modern NFL defensive line rotations. A guy that is in this body type range, who has the quickness to play outside, who has the strength to play inside, who can play upside. You're going to have a body type, a guy like this on your team this year. But the question is, how good is he going to be? Like, is he a guy who's just eating up snaps for you because you need a certain amount of guys to fill up your roster? Or is he a guy like Keldrick Faulk, you think, who could project into a plus player who you could put in at any point of the line, and he's helping kind of draw away attention and maybe even getting more one-on-one opportunities because of the guys that he has around him. So I think it's kind of a nuanced thing, but the thing about it is that there just aren't very many guys who are this size, who play the way that he does, that has that level of smooth, that you feel like could even be in range of being the kind of thing that Keldrick Faulk has the potential to potentially grow into.
Let's talk about one more pass rusher, Akheem Mesidor, who is honestly one of the most fascinating players in this draft. We'll get to him next. This episode is brought to you by TurboTax. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax full service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without the stress or the guesswork. And instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. It is a huge time saver, and it gives you real peace of mind knowing that an expert is handling it all. And so for a limited time only, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, just file by February 28th. So take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit turbotax.com/local to book your appointment today. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen every single day. Let's talk about Akheem Mesidor from Miami, who I find is one of the most fascinating players in the draft. Yeah. What say you?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's really straightforward with him. Honest to me, like I think it's very straightforward. Let's talk about the player real quick. Stubby defensive end with a very springy lower half. An older prospect who will be 25 his rookie year, right? And those are kind of the two things to start off with. And then the third thing is that he has an injury history, which is why he is a 25-year-old rookie. He had there's rumors of kind of ongoing foot stuff going on. He had a foot surgery in 2023, but there were also reports that maybe he had some issues at times with Miami. He had an elbow and an arm injury during this season that kind of kept him out, but he was able to make it back to the national championship game. He had a lower extremity injury in 2025. He's just had a series of these, and he's gotten some extra time, and that because of that, obviously. And he was part of the 2020 class. He was a 3-star, 636th ranked player in the 2020 class. And again, these are all things that kind of all add up together, but it's part of his story. And it's probably the biggest negative in his evaluation, because on the field, he's incredible, right? He plays with good pad level, has a good forward lean in his play posture. He's a fluid athlete moving forward and backwards, especially considering he's 260 pounds plus. He's a stubby defensive end, but he's got the size, right? He's very strong and he's very, very well put together. Versatile deployment, deployed from 3 technique all the way out to drop linebacker. His feet are incredibly coordinated with his hands. Everything is extremely well timed. High motor, relentless pursuer, plays with a plan, incredibly well developed as a pass rusher. I mean, just moves on top of moves constantly, and he always knows what he's going to next. There's no like hesitation, and his hands move in a flash. His hands are so good, I bet he could reduce inside and win consistently as a pass rusher in the NFL from the 3 technique position, in passing situations. Lack of length for him is not a problem at all unless he exposes his chest. See the Notre Dame right tackle 59 who got him a couple times in the chest and kind of stunted his movement. But I mean, again, there's going to be talk about the length here. This is not an issue at all for Mesidor. Swipe, bull, long arm, swim bull. He does them all extremely well. Versus the run, he will jolt blockers with his chest strike in order to try to immediately create separation to peak. Can get overwhelmed at point of attack at times, especially if his jolt doesn't blow the blocker back. I mean, just because he is a little bit smaller. I mean, just compared to offensive tackles. I think if I had to choose, I mean, I honestly thought about this before I wrote this down. I think if I had to choose one player to win one pass rush rep out of the whole class, it would be Mesidor. I think he's that good as a pass rusher. Where does he win? He's a ready-to-go pass rusher, and he needs to be. He's going to be 25 going into the NFL. Unanswered question: what does an NFL career timeline look like? And honestly, the injury and the age are the 2 biggest negatives to talk about. He is super, super impressive.
I couldn't be more out on Akheem Mesidor as a first.
Wow! Okay, let's do this. Let's do this.
You mentioned all of the reasons, but I don't see anybody that has NFL power at all. And that should be, if you're 24 years old playing in that conference and you don't show any kind of power, that is terrifying to me. On top of the injury concerns, on top of the age concerns, to me, this is somebody that you draft on middle of day 2, early on day 3 of the draft, and put him in your rotation. Because again, if you're looking like historically at this,
oh yeah, that's fair.
these guys don't hit very often at all, and you're really betting on an outlier here. I would let somebody else take the chance. Again, I know people are going to say, "Well, what about Terrence Newman?" Terrence Newman did not have the injury history coming out of school like Mesidor has. We're actually going to talk more about Mesidor in a bonus episode on Monday, so make sure you check that out. But Landon, I'm out.
Look, the injury and the age thing is scary, and I get it. And for more than one reason of just, him being 25 and being, older, quicker. It's not just about that. It's also has an effect on how you evaluate, these players. So, I get that. But I think to me, I'm betting on this outlier. I mean, I'm obviously hoping he stays healthy. Because the tape shows a guy that is, elite with his hand usage in a way that I haven't seen a lot of guys come out of college doing. And I think that he could probably come in and be a pass rusher with some success pretty early in a way that a lot of pass rushers aren't coming out of college.
And we're going to talk about his athleticism later, but I don't think he's going to test at all. And if he does, I don't think he's going to test well. And that would terrify me. So again, we'll check that out. That is it for today's show. We'd like to thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen every single day. If you haven't done so already, check out the Everydayer Club ad-free episodes of the Locked On Cowboys podcast, available wherever you get your podcast. Just go to lockedoncowboys.supercast.com to join the club. Follow Landon on Twitter at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus_Mosher, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow.